Let's talk philosophy, sort of. Because in a lot of ways, and for a lot of people, philosophy is just like a religion these days. And that's kind of a problem. Because religion, as we well know, has tried to misuse philosophy to support their irrational, profit-driven bullshit. And that is not a good thing. So let's get into it. We haven't done any philosophy for a little bit, have we? Yeah, I know that's usually a recipe for disaster, but hey, let's give it a shot. This comes from The Well, called Why Philosophy Needs the Bible and Vice Versa. And that's probably not a good sign. What religion needs is evidence, not philosophy, or at the very least, not philosophy and nothing else. Philosophy might be useful in addition to evidence, but not to the exclusion of evidence, and this is why the video will probably fail, because most of them do, don't they? But then again, what the hell do I know, right? So let's go check it out.
Many contemporary philosophers shy away from using religious texts as philosophical sources of evidence or inspiration.
Why do you need inspiration? Are you just admitting that most of philosophy is just, made up? Because I would agree with you there. That's kind of a problem in a lot of instances. Because philosophy really isn't about getting to demonstrable truth most of the time. It's just like religion in that it's about finding emotional comfort in the guise of intellectual credibility. Now, that's going to get me a bit of flack from the philosophy fanboy crowd who want to put philosophy on the same level of science, but it just isn't, sorry. It just isn't. At least not as it's used by religion. The stated purpose of philosophy is to investigate fundamental questions about existence, knowledge, values, reason, mind, and language. Great! And what demonstrable methodology does it use? What do you have that you can back up with any kind of evidence? I don't know. Hell, if anybody knows. Because how can you investigate things if you have no means whatsoever to get to verifiable truth? Just as I say with religion, it also goes for philosophy. It sounds good to me, gets you absolutely nowhere worthwhile. But sure, go ahead, keep going. Let's see if this gets any better.
They think that because these traditions believe that the texts are inspired by God, they're not capable of interpretation and debate.
Sure, you can debate them all you want. What's the purpose? Because if you have no purpose in your actions, then why are you wasting time doing it? My only purpose in any of the stuff I'm doing on the channel is to get to the truth, to better understand the objective reality in which I live. If it doesn't get me there, then I've got no use for it whatsoever. And that goes for both religion and most philosophical disciplines, because they're all doing pretty much the same thing. There are things that religion claims. Claims, not demonstrates. Not proves are actually true. Claims don't actually mean anything. Yet that's all most philosophy is doing too, right? It's trying to find emotionally comforting answers to common human questions by simply noodling their navels, not by seeking out demonstrable evidence that proves that the answers that they come up with are actually true. Because for most of the questions that they're seeking to answer, there is no objective truth value. It's just, it seems to me, with a bunch of big words offered in support. So the small-minded and the people who are really full of themselves think that they've actually accomplished anything worthwhile, which, sadly for them, they haven't. They just really like the idea. Who the hell cares?
And that's just a mistake. The whole tradition of Jewish and Christian ethics is a tradition of debate.
I wouldn't call it debate. Bloody disagreement? Absolutely. And why is she limiting this to just Jewish and Christian traditions? Because she really likes the idea, of course. But couldn't you expand this to include any religion? Islam, Hinduism, Buddhism, hell, the Aztecs and Incans had religions that we can think about too, right? But no, this is going to be specifically about Christianity because The Well is a Christian channel run by the Templeton Foundation, and Megan Sullivan is a Christian philosopher who is currently working on a project considering the role of Christian thought in AI ethics. So we're already off to a bad start here, as if that's any surprise. The bias is so thick that you can cut it with a knife. And yeah, of course it is.
You have Jesus or Muhammad or Moses engaged in asking a philosophical question to followers that followers are meant to wrestle with and think about.
I'm kind of surprised that she even mentioned Muhammad, considering her Judeo-Christian centric views on the subject, but hey, let's just address what she actually said. They pose questions that followers are supposed to think about. So what? Then those religions propose solutions which are not based on evidence or factual reality, but on how said religion wants their followers to view the world. Mostly because that directly benefits the church. These questions are not asked in a vacuum. It's not, go and figure it out for yourself. There's always direction offered that cannot be shown to be verifiably true in any way. They just really want you to think it's true. But is it? I don't know. That's the question you really need to be asking. This is where religion and a lot of philosophy go entirely wrong by playing ridiculous word games to try to bring you around to their way of thinking without showing that their way of thinking is actually correct. That's why both religion and philosophy are such a ridiculous mess, with different sects and schools of thought everywhere, because nobody can actually show that one of them is correct and any of the others are wrong. And let's be honest, no one really cares. Now, you know I'm not a huge fan of consensus for the sake of consensus, but you can't even get consensus in religion or philosophy for much of anything, really. And if you're curious why I don't much care about consensus, it's because it doesn't matter what a bunch of people agree on if that agreement isn't based on evidence. And then the agreement doesn't really mean much of anything because, you've got the evidence. The evidence is all that matters, not who buys into it. There was a near universal consensus that the earth was flat at one point, and they were all wrong. So consensus is completely irrelevant, but if you can't even achieve that, then your beliefs are even more irrelevant because they're absolutely not rationally justifiable. And maybe you should do something about that.
And these kinds of texts are asking philosophical questions that many people find profoundly interesting.
Interesting doesn't really mean anything, does it? Some people find the wizarding world of Harry Potter interesting, but that doesn't mean any of it is true, though. I think a lot of this comes down to a human discomfort with admitting that we just don't know. Welcome to reality, though, because we don't know a great many things. People need to learn to deal. This is really where I think a lot of philosophy goes wrong, because they are trying to noodle their navels into knowledge when they don't have any knowledge. They have no way to get to knowledge because they have no workable mechanism for determining what knowledge is. Just because you want to know, that doesn't mean that you do, and this is where so many people just go wrong. I mean, look by all means, but don't pretend that just because you're uncomfortable not having an immediate answer, that you can just make something up and play make-believe. That's what a lot of philosophy and pretty much all of religion has done forever, and that doesn't make it a good thing.
And in fact, one of the best ways to engage with that idea and to live out that teaching is to engage with the debate.
What debate? Because in order to have a credible debate, you have to have a credible position or two with which to engage from. You just don't have any. You have human fear and the desire to know things that you don't know. Okay, where is the debate on any of that? You have to start from somewhere that is real or have a realistic expectation that you can achieve a goal that is actually true, and neither of those are actually the case. It's just humans arguing with each other over which fantasy position is better than the other. None of the above, sorry. Now, I'm hoping that she gets somewhere worthwhile, but I guess we're just going to have to wait and see. But when you're working with a channel and a spokesman who are both ridiculously biased against realistic conclusions, I'm not really holding out a lot of hope, are you? I don't think that's the intelligent question that you seem to think that it is. Because really, philosophical is such a loose term that you can massage it into meaning pretty much anything you want. Anything can be philosophical if you really want it to be. Because I just went and asked Google what falls outside the scope of philosophy, just because I was curious, and the first result was religion. Then it goes into pseudoscience, paranormal crap, and magic. All of those things really apply to religion as well, right? Then mere opinion and uncritical belief. Like religion. So I don't know where she's getting any of this. Granted, Google isn't always right. In fact, a lot of the times it's wrong, but I find it funny that it immediately discredits absolutely everything that she's saying. I mean, take that as you will, of course. And let's get back.
There really shouldn't be this sharp division between quote-unquote secular philosophical texts and quote-unquote religious philosophical texts.
No, there should be a division between things that seek to describe reality as it is and things that don't. And sadly, a ton of philosophy does exactly that. Pretty much anything in metaphysics does exactly that. Idealism, solipsism, simulation hypothesis, existentialism, nihilism. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. Anything that cares more about your feelings than about the objective facts is pretty empty as far as I'm concerned. But then again, I live in the real world and a lot of people plainly just don't want to. And that's not a good thing as far as I'm concerned, but you can let me know if you agree or not down in the comments.
All of these texts ask philosophical questions, and philosophy doesn't know those boundaries.
That's kind of the problem though, isn't it? It doesn't know if the questions that it asks are worthwhile or rational. That's why there are tons of ridiculous grants given to philosophers, like the problem of the green apple or black ravens, which seeks to investigate the Hempel paradox, or the metaphysics of imaginary friends. Religion. I know it's dressed up as more than that, but that's at least a part of what they're doing. Or the ethics of talking to plants, or the existentialism of memes. I mean, seriously, what possible use is any of this to anyone? It's just, I had an idea, give me money so I can think about it for a while. Seriously, grow the hell up, because this is all just stupid.
There are plenty of instances in the Bible that are in exactly the same genre as the Socratic dialogues, which are the bedrock of how we have taught philosophy for 2,400 years.
And some of that is useful, and some of it is not. It's one thing to teach how to think about a topic critically and rationally, and another to throw rationality out the window because the idea just sounds good to you. We really see so much bald rationalization in philosophical circles because people are just throwing their own emotional biases into the mix and trying to make it sound good to others. That is not actual truth, but that's pretty much what I think she's going to do here, although I don't really know because obviously I haven't seen it yet. It's one thing to have Socratic-style dialogues, both past and present, if they actually get you somewhere, but entirely another to have Argle and Bargle talk about holes. I'm looking for actual demonstrable utility, and there doesn't seem to be a lot of that in a lot of philosophy. And there's even less in religion.
The Republic opens with Socrates on the road taking a walk. He runs into his cousins, and his cousins start asking him questions about what it really means to be a just person.
And there probably isn't an actual answer to that. It's all subjective, just like morality. But I don't say that because I want it to be true. I say that because just looking at the real world and actual human societies, that is what is demonstrably true. My positions are based on evidence, not on childish fifis. I actually don't think I have any positions that are based on feelings or emotions. They're all backed up by verifiable evidence and critical evaluation. That just isn't true for religion or for a lot of philosophy. That's kind of pathetic, isn't it?
And that sets off the whole rest of the book, which gets into so many really deep and important philosophical questions about how we should design society and how we should educate young people. These really profound questions come from that simple question.
But that doesn't make any of it objectively true. This is all just bald rationalization theater. There are many ways that you can set up a workable society. There are many ways that you can raise responsible children. And there are a lot of ways that you can fail, assuming we start with an agreed upon goal in mind, because goals, they're also subjective. Right and wrong are also not a thing. Correct and incorrect with respect to a stated goal maybe, but not right and wrong. This makes a lot of people really uncomfortable, but reality isn't about your comfort. Because, as Neil deGrasse Tyson says,
the universe is under no obligation to make sense to you.
We see the same dynamic with Jesus and his disciples, especially in the parables.
But that doesn't mean that what Jesus supposedly said is worthwhile or valid. It could be, and mostly is, bullshit. Just because it appeals to you on an emotional level, that doesn't make any of it true. And it's the truth that matters, and the religious are really, really bad at that, aren't they? Because this is where a lot of things start to go sideways. I like what this guy said. Okay, so what? Is it actually true? They're not remotely interested. I am, though. Just because you can draw parallels between the Socratic dialogues, written by a lot of different people, by the way, some of which we no longer even have, and things that were written in the Bible, that doesn't really mean anything, does it? Yet that's really all she can do.
There are people who are curious about how they should be living their lives. They want Jesus to share a story. They want to ask a follow-up question. That curiosity, that kind of conversation, this is how we cultivate our inner lives.
But that assumes that Jesus had a clue about anything. I mean, that assumes that Jesus ever existed at all. There is nothing but assumption here, and that makes the whole thing completely irrelevant. I mean, people could ask me how I think they should live their lives. I could tell them whatever I got floating around in my head, but that doesn't mean that I'm right or that anybody should listen to me. There's probably no one single answer to any subjective question. The assumption that there is, that's subjective in and of itself. So maybe stop being like this. What you want doesn't matter. It's time to grow up.
This is how we work on our souls. This kind of debate, this kind of thinking, it's not meant to turn you off to the ideas in the tradition, but quite the contrary. It's meant to make you really, really interested in understanding what these moral traditions ask of you.
And what people like her want to impose on you without rational justification. Because that's what religion is infamous for doing, right? And a lot of philosophies doing the same thing for that matter. It's not answering real questions with demonstrable answers. It's just pushing ideas that someone or a group of people think are valid without any evidence to show that it actually is. It's opinion presented as fact, nothing more. And I don't care about your opinions. I do care about your facts, though, and proving how you actually came to them. Maybe try to come up with some, because that would be great. Oh, wait. Because it's one thing to try to convince someone else that your ideas are valid with evidence, but to do so with implied threats, as religion and political systems often do, that is not rational reasoning. That's bullshit, and there's way too much bullshit out there in the world. So, maybe some people ought to knock that off. Just saying.
Philosophy cuts across secular and religious genres.
It can. It can also embrace the bullshit of systems like religion. That's because there is no singular methodology for philosophy that demonstrates that any of its conclusions are actually true. Because for a lot of it, probably for most of it, it just doesn't care any more than the religious do. When it becomes, it sounds good to me, instead of, this is verifiably true, and here's how I can prove it, philosophy becomes entirely useless. And that's something that a lot of people just don't want to hear.
It's an invitation for us to be a part of a discussion where that discussion itself is something that, frankly, we're meant to enjoy.
Says who? Our personal enjoyment really doesn't matter. Reality is what reality is. Whether we like it or not, that doesn't change what reality is. That's what more people need to realize. From all of the evidence that we have, we're just an irrelevant species living on an irrelevant planet in an irrelevant solar system at the edge of an irrelevant galaxy. We aren't special. If we want to understand the real world, great, I'm all for that. If we want to go on existing, sure, I'm all for that too. Does it really matter one way or the other in the grand scheme of things? No, it doesn't. When we're gone, and we will be gone one day, then nobody's going to miss us because we didn't really matter in the first place to anyone but ourselves. And if that bothers you, too bad, because that's the way things actually seem to be. Learn to deal.
It's meant to help us answer really deep questions that are hard to wrestle with if we don't have philosophical interlocutors.
It's really meant to just make us feel better about the world that we live in, but so what? I don't care about your feelings. I care if you can come to grips with the world that you actually live in. All the bullshit religious stories that we tell ourselves, they don't mean a thing if they are not verifiably true. It's all childish copium, and all the childish copium in the world, that isn't going to give you a better understanding of your actual reality. Your wishes and your dreams don't mean anything if they're not actually true. And we need to have a way to demonstrate what is true and what is not. Seriously, people need to get over themselves and just learn to deal. It's honestly not that hard.
And in the process of having the debate and discussion, we're promised that we're going to uncover some really important philosophical truths.
Defend that for me, because I don't think you can. Because you're not using the word truth in the same context that I am. For me, truth is that which is true or in accordance with the facts of reality. And a lot of people proclaiming truth, they don't mean that at all. I am only concerned with fact or reality and how we show that it's actually so, and I don't think for a second that you can rationally or evidentially justify your position at all. Go ahead, prove me wrong.
That we can use to live our lives.
Oops, I guess I cut that one a little early, didn't I? Sorry about that. I just cut where I have something I want to say, and sometimes it just happens in the middle of a sentence. Oops, sorry. But I'm not really that concerned with making your life more comforting to live. If we actually care about reality, then maybe we can find a way to better our lives, to more comfortably live our lives, especially if we can learn to deal with the world that we actually live in without all the bullshit magical wishes and dreams that you are going after. Maybe we can improve medical care so we can better understand disease and injury and take care of things without killing us. Things like that. But lying to ourselves so that we can feel better about the world around us, even if the things that we believe aren't actually true, That doesn't really get you anywhere, does it? But that's what religion does. And sadly, to an ever-increasing degree, a lot of philosophy's doing that too. You get idiots like Jordan Peterson spinning bullshit for a paycheck because people are gullible and stupid, and they fall for it. And that's not a good thing. Anyhow, that's the end of the video, really this time. What do you think? I see a lot of people treating philosophy just like religion, just like in the modern world, a lot of people treating politics just like a religion. So long as it makes them happy, they don't care if it's all complete nonsense, and I'm really tired of that, aren't you? Especially when you get these really biased channels who are doing it to get to their own emotionally comforting goals, and that's completely irrelevant. You just have to learn to deal with the truth. But before that, you need to learn how to access the truth to the best of your current ability to do so. You need to embrace we don't know, because chances are excellent that we don't. Can we? Maybe. Maybe not. Either way, truth means more than your emotional comfort. Your desire to know doesn't mean anything if you don't actually know. And that's one of the biggest problems out there right now. People don't care if they actually know anything. They just really want to believe. And whether you're talking about religion or philosophy or politics or a lot of other things, it's the same level of stupid. Knock it off. You're not helping anyone, especially not yourself.